Whereas if there is anything we have learned over the last year is that the destiny and the prosperity of nations around the world is very tightly connected and tightly interdependent. And in fact, the success of one nation and the increases in, I guess, quote unquote, competitiveness of one nation are not only not bad for the others, but can be a source of prosperity for others. So if that is what competitiveness is not, then I guess it's probably more useful to define competitiveness as the ability that a country has to create prosperity for its citizens, to make their citizens, to help their citizens have and increase their standard of living. So I guess there have been some alarm signals over the last year that I hope that will focus our attention, that the gains in productivity and the efforts and the successes over the last 2 and 3 decades of not just increasing production and economic prosperity, but also sharing that with more and more people, we cannot take those for granted. And some of the reactions that might come natural reactions to the current crisis, like increasing protectionism, like reductions of investments in higher education and research and so on, can have very high costs in the long run.
We thought that governments had run out of money 20 years ago, and as a result, we thought this was a financial issue. But 20 years ago, about 70% of the money that went into foreign assistance and that went into public-private partnerships was from the government, and 30% from the private sector. And those numbers have now switched over, Margaret, and as a result, it is now the private sector that is 70% of the money that's moving in the world, and 30% is government money. And what we have seen in this change is an enormous opportunity for public-private partnerships, for privatizations, for commercializations, for the private provision of public services, that I think we are still in the teenage years. What will happen in the next 4 to 5 decades will be very exciting. There are enormous opportunities, and the most important area that will affect is this human capital area.
It's no coincidence that if you look at the top 3 national economies in this year's Global Competitiveness Index, which are Switzerland, the US, and Singapore, they share many of the same characteristics. They've got high levels of R&D investment, strong collaboration between industry and academia, and they're very good at that gearbox between research that converts research into marketable products and services, i.e. the wealth creation component. And they have flexible labor markets.
And then there are 3 platforms. There are 3 platforms that for all the issues we're dealing with, you can really see where you calibrate them. And they're going to be different for each nation and each region, but collectively they will advance, the global world. They're the talent, the investment, and the infrastructure that drive competitiveness. Now, in the case of the US, and I think everywhere in the world, people are the most important asset. People are the 21st century equivalent of oil. If you don't have skilled, trained, creative people, you're not going to innovate, and you're not going to create, the standard of living and the security for your people. Investment. We have to have resources to invest in the frontiers of R&D. We have to have the capital structure, access to capital, tax structures, all of these things that enable us to invest in the future. And of course, here in Saudi Arabia, we're seeing tremendous commitment to investing in R&D with the creation of KAUST and the economic cities and the whole people development. And then on the infrastructure side, that really includes this concept of energy as a core infrastructure beyond physical and digital things, and the 21st century manufacturing enterprise. We are seeing now a whole transformation about how we will go from ideas to devices, how things will be made from the concept, the design, the R&D, the logistics supply chain, and sustainability will be built into all of that.